Hi, I'm Howard Payne. I'm an instructor with Dive Wimbledon. We're a 5-star IDC centre here in southwest London, and I teach both recreational and technical diving, and have been diving for about 8 years. And today I'm going to give you a little bit of advice on equipment and how to scuba dive. Okay, let's just take a look at the tanks that we use when we're diving. Obviously, we've got to have something that we can carry all of the gas that we need to breathe underwater. We've got a number of different types of cylinders. Broadly speaking, two main types. We have steel cylinders, these three are steel, and we also have aluminium cylinders over here. The way you can tell them apart is generally the steel cylinders have a rounded bottom on them, so they tend to have a rubber boot on the bottom to stop them from falling over. Aluminium cylinders, you can see over here, have a flat bottom on them, so they stand up on their own. One of the things that you need to be wary of is actually leaving cylinders standing up. Normally we would have them lying down if they're not attended or if we're not actually working with them, for the simple reason that with 230 bar or 230 times atmospheric pressure inside these cylinders, there's a lot of energy stored in there, a lot of compressed gas, and it's very dangerous to leave them standing up. If that got knocked over and you hit the valve, then there are some nasty consequences. So when we're not actually directly working with it, we would have it lying down so that it can't get knocked over. In cold water environments, kind of temperate water environments like here in the UK, we tend to dive steel cylinders because they're actually a little bit heavier in the water, and it saves us adding a lot of extra weight on our weight belt, so they tend to work a little better. Also, slightly higher pressure. These are 230 bar, whereas aluminium cylinders are normally filled to just under 210 bar. So we can generally, for the same size of cylinder, get a little bit more gas in the steel ones, and it takes a bit of weight off of our belt. Okay, two different types of fitting on the cylinders. We have the traditional kind of A-clamp or yoke type fitting, where the regulator clamps over the top of the valve, and we also have the more modern DIN fitting, which is where the regulator actually screws into the valve itself. You can see that there. Okay. Different preferences. Most schools that you come across are going to have this yoke or international style of fitting, whereas most technical divers that you come across will want to use a DIN fitting because it's a little bit more secure. Okay. In terms of choosing a tank, when you first start out diving, most of the time you're not going to need to buy a tank because almost all dive centres, us included here at Dive Wimbledon, have lots of tanks that they can lend you or rent you, but once people start to dive more often, more regularly, they'll find that very often it's more convenient to have their own tank. Some people even have two, so that they have a spare if they're going out and doing a day's diving. So really, depending on where you are in the world and how much weight you need to carry when you're diving will have a big effect on what tank that you choose. Perhaps if you're in a warm water country, maybe you're out in the Red Sea or somewhere like that, well then an aluminium tank is going to make more sense. Over here in the UK, steel. So just choose your tanks carefully. These little 10-litre tanks here are ideal for perhaps people who don't breathe quite so much, maybe women who prefer not to carry something quite so heavy. These are what we call dumpy 12s, the slightly shorter 12s. They're fatter and shorter. I'm not a big fan of these. They don't trim out very well in the water, and they're a slightly awkward shape. The most common size that you'll see here in the UK, which is what we have here on this BCD with the regs here, is a 12-litre tank. Also we have 15s quite a lot over here in the UK, so that's very common. Out in the tropics you'll very often find the 11-litre or just under 12-litre version of this, which you commonly hear called an Ali 80. So that's a little bit of an introduction into scuba tanks and what to look for. If in doubt, just ask your dive centre for their advice.